exceptional position. You know, I wanted to be here tonight, but when I learned that 3 different parts of the department of the William Penn Foundation were coming, I realized something really special was happening. And as I went around the room tonight and I saw how many Philadelphians that I work with every day were here, I realized something really, really special was happening. But it wasn't always that way. When Jonathan came to us the first time, 2 or 3 years ago, to talk about this project, I was, you know, he was breaking the cardinal rule of campaigns. Have a specific thing you want to do. Be focused, you know, it was very, very different. And we went away from the meeting saying, how are they going to get any traction? How are they going to make this work? How will they become cohesive? I had underestimated Jonathan a lot. His vision saw the common interests in this wonderful arc of communities that surround the city of Philadelphia. But more importantly, his enthusiasm captured all of you, energized all of you into seeing something that maybe you didn't see in your individual struggles for your communities. And that's what really made this so spectacular for us. This vision, this common sense of what you can become, seeing it across towns and even county lines, amazing. And across areas of interest is just extraordinary. We see it every day. We see the silos. We see the education people, the transportation people, the infrastructure people, the housing people. They don't talk. And yet you all have figured out how to do that and how to see the common interest. And I can tell you as a former public official, that is very, very powerful. When you speak with a common voice, you can become very powerful across partisan lines, across jurisdictional lines. Harrisburg will hear you in a way that they have never heard this arc before. So I celebrate you, I remember Jonathan, and what you have energized is just fantastic. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd just like to say on behalf of Joe Hoffman, I know he really did want to be here tonight. Joe is a tremendous supporter and understands the challenges facing older communities, not just in Montgomery County, but throughout the region. He's chair of our board and views the entire metropolitan area, sees those connections across the communities. So I know he sends his regrets, and I'm sorry I'm filling in for him tonight. Although the challenges facing the older communities is certainly something that personally I've had an interest and involvement in for a long time. Back in 1998, DVRPC did our first report called The Future of First Generation Suburbs. And it was the first chance to sort of look at the suburban landscape outside of the cities and realize that not all suburbs are created equal. To realize that there's a shade of difference and that the older suburbs face really unique challenges that need to be addressed. At that time, we identified 3 strategies to think about how to address the challenges of older suburbs. First was to talk about tax-based sharing. Needless to say, we didn't get too far on that one. Second was to look at regional planning, and I think since then we've come a long way in terms of working cooperatively and working together. But third, and perhaps most important, was the need for the older suburbs to work together, to build a coalition, to build an action agenda, to find their common threads across community boundaries, across municipal boundaries, across county boundaries, and to work at strength. And we launched a couple of conferences to start to bring people together, but we knew we couldn't lead that it had to be organic, it had to come from the grassroots. And to see the way that the First Suburbs group came together is just so wonderful and so satisfying. That's what it takes, is for you all to work together. Thank you, Marilyn. And it's been a long trip, but I think you have so much to celebrate and really be proud for. The a couple of people I need to acknowledge. First of all, David Rusk, who I learned a ton from, and really we all owe a great debt to. At the time we were working in it, Jackie Purifoy-Brinkley was on council in Yaden. Jackie was a real mentor that we worked together. Dave Forrest was about 3 older suburbs ago, I think, in Pottstown at that time, and was a partner. Angela Clinton, I think, was in 6th grade at the time. But all of them have been tremendous partners, as has everyone in this room. So I can only congratulate everyone who's been involved with First Suburbs, and keep carrying the ball, and we look forward to more great things. Thank you.
It's an honor to get to co-host this with great state senator and public servant Ted Erickson, and I think it's a salute to the bipartisanship of the work being done here. It falls to me to again really highlight Jonathan's role here. And I like to point out, when it comes to getting involved in political or business movements, more often than not, it's not just the what, it's the who. And eventually it then becomes the how and the when. And I look at this room and I think about Jonathan. I know more than half this room actually had the pleasure of meeting Jonathan. I never met somebody who was both among the top 3 smartest people I had ever met, and clearly in the top couple most honorable and decent and warm people I had ever met. Yes, give him a round of applause. And you know what else? I'm going to ask you to give Mr. and Mrs. Schmidt, if you please raise your hand. Jonathan lives on with you and with all of us. I will just say, more often than most of us like to concede, the way we get heavily involved in something is like, what? Huh? What are we doing? Okay, Mom. Okay, Jonathan. I mean, it has a ton to do with everything. And part of what I find so exciting about this movement is not just that it's about doing the right thing in some really critically important issues and areas and arenas. It, again, is a continuation of doing it with the right kind of people. I mean, just walking in here, Feather was talking about the serendipity of seeing city leaders in here. I think Ken Weinstein, my middle-aged eyes are fading on me, but city leaders who care about the inner ring suburbs, decent people across the lines of religion and color and community, all of whom share exceptional warmth and thoughtfulness are represented in this room. And I think that really echoes Jonathan's memory and his spirit. I also want to tip my hat in particular. Most organizations fail or thrive based on the energy and skill of their executive director. Join me in recognizing our wonderful, wonderful executive director. Yeah, Angela Clinton. After Jonathan was able to nail down the toes of this peripatetic venture capitalist who was starting to run for office and explain what he was up to, I admit I got very excited about the what. He started to focus my attention on the really interesting work being done by Brookings and by many other great researchers around the country, saying that the abandonment and neglect of these inner ring suburbs was going to cost American civilization big time in the long run across the country, and no state in the country would pay more in the long run than the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I confess, I grew up in one of these little tiny micro townships where we were incredibly self-referential, Lower Merion. So we had heard of Lower Merion, Upper Merion, maybe Upper Darby, maybe Haverford. I don't think I probably was 16 before I knew there was such a thing as a county. I was competing in something and they said, you're in the county finals. And I'm like, what is a county? And that's when I learned that Montgomery County existed. And so we had this incredibly balkanized sense of our world. And, as a colonial state, we frankly, dare I say it, have too many government borders. So I know I'll get shot later for this, but I went to at Narberth. We love our little parades there. I knew we had a little bit of redundancy when I saw not one but 3 bomb disposal units in one tiny parade in Narberth. I'm like, how many bombs can we have in greater Narberth, right? So, we have a real issue here. And sort of flowing into the present moment, thinking about the what. Right now, I'm in a bit of a wrestling match with the governor of my own party. Ted and I were joking around about this, saying, every $1 billion does add up over time of debt. And I'm not seeing on this list, first of all, it's very hard for me to figure out what the money's going to be spent on, but I'm not seeing things like water infrastructure. I don't just want to represent the well-connected. I want to represent borrowing now in a way that will pay for itself big time in the long run. Because we're not going to be able to find tax revenue. We've got to use debt responsibly. So we're engaged in these battles, and I'm taking a lot of energy from Jonathan on that. I'll move also to the how. How are we doing this? Bipartisanly, pragmatically, thoughtfully, energetically, and on multiple fronts. We have among us many, many pragmatists. Let's constantly alert each other to what is doable. We have faith-based leaders, we have distinguished foundation leaders, we have community leaders, we have business leaders in this room. Each of us has a small list of things that can actually get done. I hope we'll each quarter, each year, bite off a few more things so that your wonderful list continues to grow. And finally, I want to point out the when. We've had a few highly volatile political cycles. The divisiveness has really evidenced itself. And, some of us are kind of pointy-headed political nerds. We could argue at length how much has to do with voter turnout, thumping the tub of your base, persuading the undecideds. And yes, there are voters that don't vote some cycles, that do vote others. But there's another kind of voter, and that's the voter that moves back and forth. And a very disproportionate share of those voters, thoughtful, decent voters, who are not representing special interests, live in our suburbs. They live in our suburbs. This is our fight. In the fullness of time, we can provide what America needs most: constructive consensus and a return to civility.